All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Lamed Aleph, Lamed Beis. So we left off the top line, 2 dots, or second line from the top, no 2 dots. I'm all over the place. No top line, no 2 dots. Second line, Taner Rabban. Sukkah Gezula v'Masachik b'Shus Rabim, a stolen sukkah, and one of his Masachik b'Shus Rabim. He goes into Shus Rabim and he just basically puts schach up. I guess there's some sort of walls there. And he puts up some schach there and says, got my sukkah. Rabbi Eliezer Paisel, Chamim Machshir. Rabbi Eliezer says, no good. And Chamim says it's kosher. He has fulfilled his obligation of the mitzvah sukkah. So Amar Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman Machlekes B'Shit Taikev Es Chaver Vaytzia Misukasa. The Machlekes over here, according to Rav Nachman, is when basically one goes ahead and kicks out his friend, right, from his sukkah. That's how he steals his sukkah. He doesn't steal materials. He just basically takes someone and tosses them. It takes time. The Rabbi Eliezer Latamit. Rabbi Eliezer goes to Shitasa. The Amar Ein Adam Yitzei Yidei Chavasa B'Sukkah Shel Chavero. A person does not fulfill his obligation with the sukkah of his friend. Right? As Rashi says over here, or I'll point out soon. Right? So he says because now this is basically quote unquote a best case scenario, it's a borrowed sukkah, right? He's borrowed by force. And a person cannot fulfill his obligation with a borrowed sukkah, basically with the sukkah that's not his. Why? And why is that? If you hold that land can be stolen, so sukkah gzuli, it's basically a sukkah gzuli. It is stolen, but it's not his. Now it's still owned, it's still part of the original owners, and it's not his. Or even if you say karka and nixelis, that land cannot be stolen. So gashuli, it's flat out borrowed. So they hold that since, Rabbi Eliezer holds that since it is considered to be a sukkah shula, a borrowed sukkah, right? It's not his, right? And if you see Rashi over here points out sukkah gzuli, the Rabbi Eliezer darish. I'm just reading a Rashi. Rabbi Eliezer darish tasa lecha bishalcha v'lo gzula v'lo sheula. Right? When the pasuk says "Tasa lecha," make for yourself a sukkah, right? It means it has to be something of yours. It can't be stolen and it can't be borrowed. So even best case scenario, if it's not stolen, it's borrowed. That's still excluded from the pasuk of "Tasa lecha." But Rabbanan back in the Gemara, Rabbanan Tamai, who goes, she doesn't. They say Adam Yaitse Yidei Chavasa B'Sukkah Shel Chavera. A person can't go ahead and fill his obligation with the sukkah of his friend, right? The karka and exals and land is not stolen. Because according to the Chachamim, if one goes ahead and basically tosses somebody out of his sukkah, it's not considered stolen because you can't steal land, right? You can't steal the Shus Rabim either, right? Rather, you're only borrowing it basically against someone's will, right? And therefore, since it's a borrowed sukkah, the Rabbanan don't darsh tas elacha, and they hold that a borrowed sukkah, a person can't fulfill his obligation. But if one basically goes ahead and goes in someone's lumber yard and steal his lumber, and I make a sukkah with their materials, divrei hakol ein lo ela demei eitz. Everyone agrees the only claim against me is that basically since I stole it and it became mine, now I have a monetary obligation to that person because I stole it, right? But since I own it now, everybody agrees that it's good because there's a shinui ma'isa, there was a ma'isa that changed. And with that shinui, with that change, it now basically becomes mine. Yes, I have, right? I do owe him money, but I can fill the obligation.
But is there any Yehush involved on the other side?
I mean, whether he has it or not, right? Right. So even if he does it, I still have an obligation of money, right? Yehush, right? Doesn't necessarily. It has to do more with the owning it, but it doesn't have to do with the monetary obligation. Even if he gives up hope for it. Right. So that why do you say this is the case? Right? That we're talking about a case where he basically kicks somebody out of the sukkah as opposed to stealing his wood, and even in that case, everybody else will say it's no good. Because we compare a case of stealing, theft, similar to Rishus Harabim. Rishus Harabim karka lavdidehu, just like the case of Rishus Harabim, it's only talking about the ground is not his, and someone just goes out and builds a sukkah on public property. Sukkanami lav karka didehu. So too, the case of sukkah is also when the ground is not his, but if you go ahead and basically steal someone's sukkah and build it on his own property, that would be a different case. That would be a kosher sukkah, but he would just owe the guy money. Now, One time there was an old woman that came for Rav Nachman, Amri lay, and Amra lay. She told Rav Nachman, Reish Galusa, the Kulu Rabbanan, the Reish Galusa. She says the Reish Galusa and his whole entourage, right? Basukah Gzula Haviyasvi. They're sitting in a stone sukkah. Savcha b'lo ashkapa. Right? So she was yelling and he didn't pay attention. And so Rav Nachman Amrullah, so Lashka Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman didn't pay attention to her. So the woman said, "The Havi le liavua tlas meya v'timni sari avdi tzavcha kamaycha v'lo." Right? He has some lady who's right great grandfather. Avram Avinu had 318 servants, and you don't even listen to her, right? Because why are you ignoring me? So Amrullah Rav Nachman. So he said, so as Rav Nachman said, he said, no, Piyasida. She's crying. Right? The only claim she had, yes, whether it's stolen or not, there's nothing to say regarding the sukkah. Worst case scenario, even if it's true, they would just owe money for the sukkah. And Amar Avina, Hai Keshura, Dimitalasa, the Gzula, Avdi Rabban Takanasa, Mishum Takanas, Marish. Person goes ahead and steals a beam, a central beam, and he uses it for his own sukkah. So the Rabbanan were Masakein, Takanas Marish, right? Basically a takana of that in order to make tshuva easier, right? We don't require a person to return the actual beam. Rather, it's the value of the beam, right? Because then people will go ahead and tear down their structures. If I go ahead and steal a beam and I put it in a structure, I'm not going to tear down my entire structure just to return to you, right? Something which is a couple $100, right? So therefore, same thing with the sukkah. So if I go ahead and steal a beam, right, the takana is you don't have to return the beam, but you have to return the value. So why is there a difference in wood? Why is it only with the beam? Maybe wood is different. Maybe this is not common to a beam, and therefore maybe I have to lose amalot. Maybe I have to return the beam itself. I don't have to. And hani mili because shiva. This is only talking about within the 7 days of sukkahs. Alabasa shiva, but after the holiday sukkahs, hadabeni, then you got to go ahead and tear down your sukkah and return the beam. And if he goes ahead and he puts it in mortar and he in tar, right? And he cements it down. Even after 7 days, he doesn't have to return the object. He doesn't have to tear it down and do demolition. Rather, just pay the money, the value of the beam. Fine. New sugya, right? We're around, 17 lines from the bottom. Tana, Yovesh, Puzzle, Rabbi Yehuda, Machshir. So he said, morning, right? We just started a new sugya. Laman Aleph. So Tana, Yovesh, Puzzle, a dried out lulav. This puzzle, Rabbi Yehuda Machshir, and Amar Rava says Rava right over here. Amar Rava Machlokes belulav. Machlokes is time lulav. The Rabbanan sorry Makshina lulav esrog. The Rabbanan hold a dried out lulav. They say it's puzzle because they learn it from esrog. Ma esrog by hidur. Just like esrog, because by esrog it says creates hadar. It has to be something which is beautiful, which is nice. So just like esrog requires it. So to everything else in the pasuk also requires a hidur, and therefore something which is completely dried out is no good, right? Rabbi Yehuda Savar like makes lulav to the esrog, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that no, we do not compare lulav to the esrog. The esrog, but when it comes to esrog, divra kol hadar binan v'lula loipa. Excuse me, divra kol hadar binan. When it comes to esrog, everyone agrees because it says creates hadar that esrog cannot be dried out. It has to be a nice esrog. When I ask, I lulav laboy Rabbi Yehuda. When it comes to lulav, Rabbi Yehuda does not require it to be nice. But tonight we learn in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer yagdenu milamalo. Go ahead and tie it down on top, right? Tie them together. So my time alam mishum deboy hidur. Is it not because it should be beautiful? That's why you should sort of tie it together, become separated. Or it says no, lo. Because like it says the reason Rabbi Yehuda Omer mishum Rabbi Tarfon kapos tamarim. It says over there, referring to the lulav when it's identifying the lulav, it says kapos tamarim. So kapos. In other words, you should go ahead and it should be basically it should be like one. Right? Then you should go ahead and tie it together. So since we learned from kapos tamarim, you should go ahead and tie it. That if it's separate, you should go ahead and tie it together. that's the reason why you tie it. It's not because of to fulfill the obligation of hidur, right? When it comes to the lulav, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not required, right? But we learn the pasuk of kapos, you should go ahead and tie it together. So once again, the Gemara furthermore pushes, I've loved hidur, and lulav does not require hidur, according to Rabbi Yehuda. But now we learn in Mishnah, in oidin lulav el b'mino, David Rabbi Yehuda. When you go ahead and you tie it together, you should go ahead and tie it from its own species, right? So what is the reason? My time. Why it's its own species from its own kind, from the same tree? So lav and shud the is it not? So it makes it much nicer. It makes it much nicer if you use lulav branches, right, to tie it together, which is coincidentally what we do, right? We put there's a lulav branch that goes around. Is it not because of hidur? So the answer is low. No. Tamarava, afilu b'siva, afilu b'ikra, dedikla. No, even part of the bark or other parts of the tree which are not as nice, those are also used to go ahead and tie the lulav together. The Elamite time of Rabbi Yehuda. If that's the case, why does Rabbi Yehuda say you should only go ahead and tie it down or tie it together with something from its own tree? So So over there, it's because Rabbi Yehuda holds that lulav requires agat. And if that's the case, if you bring from another tree, you bring from an apple tree, you bring from a maple tree, whatever it is, you bring something else, you now have, it's not the daled medium anymore. You have 5 medium together, right? And therefore, we don't want to go ahead and add, have another mean. So therefore, when we tie it together, we only tie from its kind. We tie the lulav on its own. Now, the Gemara is going to reverse it. Now, mi boy Rabbi Yehuda. Now, by esrog, so we said everyone agrees when it comes to esrog, it has to be beautiful because it says priyat sadar. So even Rabbi Yehuda holds that. So mi boy Rabbi Yehuda hadar. Vatani learn braysa arbas minim shebululav. When it comes to the formula, shem shein by parichsin mehen kachem esivin aliyam. Just like we don't have less than 4, we don't have 3. So too, we don't add to them. Lo matz esrog. If you don't find an esrog, lo yavi, lo parish, lo rimon. Right? You don't go ahead and bring another fruit, right? Not a pomegranate, not a quince, right? Not other matters, and other types of fruit. You don't bring an apple there, right? And if it is semi-dried out, right, then you can go ahead and it's still kosher. However, yaveshim, if it's completely yavesh, completely dried out, then it's psula, right? Then it's pasul. And Rabbi Yehuda says, af yavation, even dried out, right? You'll get those people who save their esrogim, they turn it real small, over the year, for the summer, whatever they want to do with it. So it gets real small, completely dried out. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's kosher. So obviously we're going to point out, when we finish the brisa, right, that he holds it doesn't have to be hidur, because if you're going to use something which is dried out, right, then there's no hidur, right? And for Amar Rabbi Yehuda, it says Rabbi Yehuda Ma'aseh b'bnei, turn the page. Krach, the people of the city, Shayu Marishan Les Luvain Levnei Bneiim. Right? They lived in towns where they didn't grow esrogim. Right? You live in Chicago, you're not going to be able to find a local esrog tree. So what do they used to do? They used to go ahead and pass it down to to the next generation. Right? Hey, this I'll give you my lulav, my esrog that I used last year. And Amr, they said, Sham Raya. Right? Is that a proof? Ain't Shas Chak Raya. Right? No, you can't use a shas b'chak, something which was an extraordinary circumstance, right? We had no other choice as a proof. Ktani mihas, third line from the top, and laman aleph from the base. Nevertheless, it says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, af yaveshin ksher, even dried up esrogim are kosher. So my lava esrog is not referring to an esrog, right? It says dried ones are kosher. It's not referring to an esrog, and you see over here that esrog doesn't need to be hidur. Right? So he says, no, it's talking about lulav. It's talking about lulav, and that which he says, chair is talking about lulav, but if it was indeed the esrog, it would be okay. Just like you can't, take only 2 or 3 the minim, right? Maybe you skip the aravos or hadassim or whatever you want. You can't take away. So too, you do not add any other species there. So once says pshita, it's obvious, right? Pasuk identifies 4 things. Why would you think you can have 5? So maybe it says since Rabbi Yehuda requires agat to go ahead and you have to tie them together. And if you tie it with something else, from another tree or from an apple tree, right? For a grapevines, whatever it is, maybe each one's separate. Yes, it's tied with grapevine, but it's not considered part of the Hoshana. It's not considered all part together. Kamash Balon, that you can't go ahead and tie it with another species. And Omar Mar, lo matzah, estrog, lo yavi, lo rimon, lo parish, lo davarach. You can't find an estrog. What are we going to do? Okay, bring something else. You can't. You can't bring a pomegranate. You can't bring other species, quince, whatever it is. You can't bring another fruit to go ahead and have that as your dalaminu. So what's this pshita? It's obvious. Maybe you'd say, okay, go ahead and bring at least something else so they won't forget about it. If we go many years, right, with our dalaminim, we can't find an esrog, there's no esrog, nothing we can bring in. So people might forget that there's dalaminim. People might think there's only 3 minim, right? Hadas, lulav, and aravos, and they're going to forget the esrog, and even when esrogim are available, no one's going to go ahead and get. So let's go bring something else. No, kamash balon, that you still can't. Why? Perhaps because then, if you go ahead and use an apple every year, then years later, when esrogim are available, they'll say, "Oh, I remember from when I was a kid, we used to use apples. Apples are also good for the daled medium, and I'm not going to go ahead and spend $125 on an esrog. I will go ahead and get $2.99 a pound. Fine. Toshma. Come and listen. Esrog hayoshan pasuk. Rabbi Yehuda machshir. An esrog, which is dried out, old, pasuk. Rabbi Yehuda says kosher. Pretty beferish, right? It's obvious, right? Rabbi Yehuda says it. So tiyufta de Rava tiyufta. Right? So it's a kasha and Rava. Rava earlier said that even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that an estrog doesn't need hither. And over here, we see, Rabbi Yehuda does say it needs hither. And over here, we see Rabbi Yehuda machshir. Rabbi Yehuda says a dried out estrog, no problem. So it's a kasha and Rava. Lo by hither. Gemara asks, it does not require hither. But we learn in the Mishnah, hayarik karsi, if your estrog is as green as a leek, right, as as a green vegetable, Meir machshir, Rabbi Yehuda paisel. Over there, Rabbi Meir says kasher, and Rabbi Yehuda says pasel. So why does Rabbi Yehuda pasel? Lamashud deboy hither. Is it not because Rabbi Yehuda holds and needs hither, and that's why it's no good? Ryan says lo, neshum delay gamar pir, right? Because those species, right? Obviously nowadays, some people do have green esrogim, right? But over there, those species, right? They're only green, right, in the beginning before they fully grow. But once they fully grow, then they turn yellow. So he's saying it's no good because it's not a fruit. It has to be pre. Excuse me, it's not a pre yet. Yeah.
So here is a definition of time. Probably itself.
It has to be a pre.
Can't be dry. Cannot be too.
Right. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, right, it's no good before because it's not a pre yet. It needs to be a pre, right? But when they grow, the Yemenites, don't they have the Yemenite esrog, and those are green. Those are green, right? So it's different than this. Those are already pre, though. It's nothing to do with the color.
One time, but it's no longer. You can't eat a 10-year-old, 5-year-old.
Right. So right now we're just talking about a green, the color. So this Bryce is only deal with the coloring, now with the green, right. And those are fully grown. So obviously he's not referring to, this is referring to ones that turn yellow once they ripen, once they become an esrog. Toshma, shir esrog, cotton, a small, what is the minimum size of an esrog? Rabbi Meir says, even the size of a nut, right, a walnut. Rabbi Yehuda says the size of an egg. So why does Rabbi Yehuda require something a little bigger egg? Is it not because it's nicer when it's bigger, right? Is it not because he requires hither? So our answer is low. Once again, if it's too small, if it's not the size of a egg, then because it hasn't become a fruit yet, and that's the reason why it's no good. But not necessarily a vort in hither. Tashma, come on, listen. The gadol, now opposite, what is the largest size you can have? Excuse me, sorry about this. Today, sheyachos shnayim biyado achas di Rabbi Yehuda. Says Rabbi Yehuda, right, that it's only big enough that we can hold 2 of them, right, in your hand. But if it's larger, then you can't even hold. Huh? No, I got it right. So if it's larger. I'll just change for a second. See, that helps. But nope. If it's too large that you can't fit two of them in your hand, right? They're size of, I don't know, whatever. If they're size of baseballs, then you can hold two in your hand. Size of basketballs, you can't. So it's no good. Even if you have one that's so big, they need to hold it in two hands. That's still good enough. My timer, what's the reason? Is it not because he requires hither? That's the reason why it can't be too big. Ryan says, no, that's not the reason. Since Rabba says lulav, I mean that's a small. Yeah, he's against it. So he says no. Since a lulav is supposed to go on the right hand, the lulav and the other two medium, and the esrog was small. Sometimes he'll have it backwards. They asi lafuchini, and then he has to go ahead and switch it around. He has to put the lulav in his right and his esrog in his left. If it's too big, it's going to fall. Therefore, from a practical reason, says Rabbi Yehuda, they do it hither, right? It has to be that we don't. If you switch it, we don't want you to drop it and become puzzle. Vel Rabbi Yehuda haksiv hadar. It says pre Sadar. So doesn't that mean it should be a beautiful esrog? Doesn't require that? So he says no. Hahu hadar beilano mishana l'shana. It means it's a type of fruit that can live on its tree from year to year. Apparently, an esrog can, if you don't go ahead and harvest it or pluck it, whatever, it can remain on the tree for multiple years, and therefore, the Pri Sadar is identifying what is this citric, what is this, this fruit that we're talking about. It's something that if you don't take it off the tree, it'll remain there, ripe for multiple years. Right, 2 dots. So we're at 3 lines from the top of the wider lines on Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. Shalashera shalir nidachas. We said if a lulav from a shera tree, a tree that was worshipped for Avodah Zarah, or one of a city that was a city of idol worship that was supposed to be destroyed, those are no good. Zakt Gemara shalashera psula is a shera tree apostle. Ba'marav lulav shel Avodah Zarah lo yitel. You should not go ahead and take it for a lulav. V'im natal kasher. But if you use it, it's kosher. So the answer is hacha bi'ashera demoshe askina. That which we say it's no good, even if you use it at all, it's no good. That was referred to as shera by Moshe Rabbeinu. Over there, he said that the ksusi michtas shirei, because it says over there was the commandment to go ahead and cut down the tree. Something that was worshipped Avodah Zarah during the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, they had to go ahead and cut it and destroy it. Since something is set to be destroyed, it's non-existent. If it's non-existent, it doesn't have the proper shear. We'll soon see later on, it has to have a shear of 4 tefachim long. It's not 4 tefachim long. It's 0 tefachim long. It's on the tree. It looks 8 tefachim long. What are you talking about? Nope. Halachically, since it has to be destroyed, it's like it's not there. But if it was just used, not time of Moshe Rabbeinu, just to sweep in front of it or to part of Avodah Zarah, then it doesn't have to be destroyed. If it doesn't have to be destroyed, then it could have a shear. And tikanami diktani dumia dirni dachas. And we learn from there because it's like erni dachas. So listen together in the Mishnah. The reason for erni dachas is possible is because it's something which it has to be destroyed. It has to be destroyed. It doesn't have a proper shear. Doesn't have proper measurement. So to over here, the Asherah tree was that of from the Asherah de Moshe and referring to something that had to be destroyed. Now, nekdim rosho, the top was cut off. It's no good. Of the lulav. And Amar Avhuna lo yishanu ela niktem. We're only talking about if it was cut, about nistak, but if it was split, kosher. If the lulav was split, then it's no good. The nistak kosher is split good. But Tani, we learn in Brisa, lulav kafuf, a lulav which was bent over, right? It was bent. Or it was bent, yeah. It's kavitz, or if it was kavitz, it had thorns in it. Wow. All right. If it was thorns, or saduk, all right, a little better now. Or it was split, and akum daim lamagel, or if it was bent right? Similar to a sickle, puzzle. And charus, and when it says over there, charus, right? That it was very hard, then puzzle, then it's puzzle. Daim the charus is only hardened, is hard like, then it's kosher. So, but nevertheless, it says over there, but these it was split. So didn't we say earlier, right, that split was okay, and here it seems to say that split is puzzle. So Rapapa, the avid kehemenik akum. So over here, kehemenik. So over here, it's talking about a case where it's like a hymnic, right? Since it's like a hymnic, in other words, that which we say, which is Rashi said, right? In other words, if it was split completely, right? If it was just split down the middle, it's okay. But if it was formed like a split, like a Y, right? Then it's no good. If that's how the lulav came, the spine came up and then it branched out, that's no good. But if it just came up and it was split, right? It was split in half and they made it tied together, that would be okay according to what we just said. And then we said, akum daimel lamagel, if it was bent like a sickle, right? Sickle comes around. So amar rava lo amran el lefanav, only in front of it, right? In front of it, right? The front of it means like, to me, it's almost the back. You have like the smooth side and then the side, right? So the spine is actually on the back, right? Normally the spine is on the back. So to me, the spine is on the back and the front is the other way. So the amran el lefanav, if it goes in front of about that, right? But if it's on the back of it, then briasi, that's the way it grows, even if it's like a sickle bent that way, and it is briasi and therefore be kosher. And Amar of Nachman, that Sadin, Kilafan of Dami, remember that Kilafan of Dami. It says of Nachman, if it's basically curved like a sickle to the side, then it's like it's in the front, and therefore be puzzle, and some say it's like it's in the back, and then it would be kosher. The Yama Rava, Hai, Lulava, the Sali Bechad Hutsa, Bal Mumu Puzzle. You have a lulav that basically completely only grew on one side of the spine and not the other, right? Therefore, that is a balmum, that is a blemish, that is a irregular lulav, and it would not be kosher. Then we said in our mission, nifetzu alav, if the leaves, right, were nifetzu alav, they were torn out, it's no good. And now nifetzu de'avid kihufe, it says it basically looks like it was torn and it was separated all like a broom. Nifredu, but if it just came apart, if it was completely, out, they're going all out in separate ways, then it's no good. But if it was nifredu, if it just spread out, then then it's just then that would be okay. So completely separated, all bent out, that's no good. But if it's just they separate, when you shake it, then you go put it back together. And boy Rav Papa nechleka hatiomes mahu. If the tiyomas comes the word twin. If it basically goes in the middle, everything goes towards the middle, and then there's a middle piece. That's the one that everyone always looks at. If that one is split, the tiyomas, right? The double one, the twin in the middle. If that is split, was alach. So Toshma, Dam Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Yeshua Levi, and he tells us tiyomas puzzle. So my love who did nechka. It says over there that if it was removed, right, the double, right, the double leaf in the middle was removed, it's puzzle, right? Does it also mean also a split? So he says, no. Who says it's the same? No. So he said, no, that's not the case. So he says, lo, nitlo shani. So he says, no, if it was removed, then it is different. Why? Because it's missing. If it's missing something, then it's no good. But if it's split, who says it's no good? And Nikad Amri, and some have a different version. Omar Rabbi Ramasa.
Yeah, like we said earlier, you can just close it. It's not missing anything. You can
right. So according to this, right? According to that would be okay. And some say, however, Amar Rabbi Mason, Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi, Nachlakla Tiyomas Nase Kimishnita Tiyomas Upas. Right, but others hold that another girsa that if it is split, indeed it is possible and it's no good. Right, which I think is the way that we hold nowadays. Right, people are very careful to make sure that the two inside ones are connected. Right, because if those are split, then you got a problem. That's what people always. That's the main part to look at.
You put that ring around it.
Oh, shkach, thank you. What is it?
You put that ring around it.
Right.
To avoid this.
To avoid it, right? But even when you're right, yeah. But even when you're picking out in the beginning,
It's that energy to split it while you're shutting it up,
but even when you're doing it in the beginning, so people are looking. What if people are looking all day? They're looking to see that the middle one is not split at all.
You know the chances of the middle, you have ones that go crazy.
Yeah.
You know the chance of having a muscle with this. Let's get a tap out.
All right.
Split.
Yeah, it's it.
Muscle.
No, but sometimes it can be split.
It is possible.
No, if it splits and it comes, put it back. But
It looks at you like something wrong. Everyone's like,
They do that
they
anyway.
split.
What about super glue?
You could.
What about super glue?
The first time I was doing that.
You could. It's not. If it's made. It's not. It's just.
all right, 2 dots. Rabbi Yehuda in there. So Rabbi Yehuda said that you should tie it. It requires tying. So Tanya going to write. So Rabbi Yehuda in there, Mishin Rabbi Tarfon, Kapos Tamar. So the pasuk says, right? I'm just going to read the pasuk. L'kachnu l'chem b'yom harishon pri etz hadar, right? As referring to that's the estrog and Kapos Tamar. All right. So what does Kapos Tamar mean? So Kapos, it means over there that it should be said Kafus in Hayaparot Yichaftanu. So as earlier, it should be together, and if it becomes separated, then you should go ahead and tie it together. That's the lashon of kapos. Tie it together if it becomes separated. So Amar Le Ravina Ravashi Mimai Dai Kapos Tamarim the Lulavu. Who says is referring to the lulav tree, right? This type of palm tree. Ema charusa. Maybe it's part of a charusa tree, another type of tree, right? Which was much harder. So our answer is Baina Kapos Velecha. You need to be able to tie it together, right? And you don't have that, which is something which is hard, right? Something which is hard is always one. There's no tying it together, right? It won't work. What about the ufta from the tree, right? So it says kapos michlal di kapara. In other words, ufsa is basically more of a thick branch, and a thick branch, in other words, is something that will never be tied. So kapos means that it does become separated and you tie it. Something which is a thick branch, all right? It's a singular branch, will never need to be tied. So since that of a high kapos, and that's always, quote unquote, tied together. So therefore, since that will never separate, that is excluded from kapos tamara. The ema kufra. What about something else from the tree, from one of the shoots from the palm trees? So Amar Abaye. It says over there, right? The pasuk says all your ways, the Kadosh Baruch Hu's ways are pleasant, and the kufra has, I guess, thorns, or it's uncomfortable in the hand, and therefore we don't require you to hold something with thorns or poking out that would hurt you. So it's referring to the smooth lulav palm branches, right? The palm leaves, and not anything else. And Amar Le Rava. What about, let's say over here, also maybe means that take two bundles from over there from the palm tree, right? Let's take 2 tamarim, 2 dates. So it says kapos kasif. It says over there, kapos without a vav, right? 1. Okay, so take 1. So he says lahu kaf karle. It says over there, even though that's called kaf, it's not called kapos. So in other words, how do you feel kapos? It has to be basically 2 that's 1, or 1 that could be 2, which is referring to the lulav branch. And then we said over there.
What is the kaf? What is the non plural version
of what?
of the lulav?
Right.
David.
Well, because we actually we had our cake and ate it too, right? Because we said kapos is plural,
Right.
and then they want to say, okay, 1. It says no, it's kaf karle, right? Right. In the Rashi, the kafos al shem kafos impruda vein lashon said neifel ella al lulav, right? That kaf means that you should be able to go ahead and tie it together. If you can't tie it together, then it wouldn't be good. Right. He wasn't the Havamina.
I
Right.
wonder what it looks like.
Which to tie together what
I mean, we say that maybe it's a cup, maybe it's a singular.
right.
So which means are we talking about the same branch, or is the Havamina about a different kind of branch?
Different kind of the same tree, but
Different branch. I'm saying, what does that look like? Is what I'm saying.
right. So over here,
Is there a lulav? Is there something on the tree that doesn't look like the lulav?
right. Yeah, I think because also part of palm trees don't don't dates grow on palm trees also?
Yes.
Right. So it could be maybe even some of the dates, like those fruits, because I mean, look, the esrog itself is a fruit, right?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I mean, the esrog itself is a fruit, right? So maybe it's, you're talking about 2 fruits and 2 leaves. Who says it's 3 leaves and, 1 fruit? Fine. So 2 dots. There's no such thing as what.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. What's the hobby? The hobby is I guess not fruits. Fine. So that's Sine Harabarzel Kshera. So we say that Sine Harabarzel, those that come from the area of Sine Harabarzel are Kshera, right? The palms in the area of Harabarzel, those are okay. So Amar Bayla Shana El Sheroisho Shelzeh Magilat Tzad Ikro Shelzeh. When the leaves are growing up, I guess they had a unique species over there. You had to make sure only that the top of the lower leaves reached the bottom of the ones above it. Right? Ours are much more close together, but those are more weren't as fully aligned. But if it doesn't reach the next one leaves that are growing, then it's possible. And Tanya Lunar Bryce, Tanya Nabihachi, Tzini Harabarz Absula. Tzini Harabarz are possible. I've on Taran Kshera. I am Mishlis Kshera. Elishmami, no, Kabai, Shmami. Rather, let's learn like a bite. That when is it kosher? It's kosher when the top of the leaves of the lower, reaches the top and the spine. Otherwise, it's no good. Turn the page. The Ika Daramila Mirma. And some ask it not just as 2 different prices, it has a kasher. Tanan, it says, Sini Harabarzel kosher. It says in our Mishnah, Sini Harabarzel kosher. But Tanya will learn a Bryce of Psula. And when the Bryce is Psula, Abaye Loi kasher. Kan Shirosh Megillah Tzad Ika Shozeh. And Kan Shirosh Shozeh Megillah Tzad Ika Shozeh. One is talking about a case where the leaves reach the next, leaves growing the roots of the on top of it. And the other, when it's possible, is when it does not. So Amar, Rabbi Merion, Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi, and some say Tani Rabbi Bar Meri, Mishun Rabbi Yechim and Zakai, Shtei Temuros Yesh Begi Ben Hanas. There are 2 Ben Hinnom. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry, Ben Hinnom. So it says there are 2 palm trees that are growing this value of Ben Hinnom. The Oila Ashim Ibneim, there's smoke coming out between them. The Zeu Shaninu Tzini Harbarzel Ksheros. These types of palm trees, right? Those are actually the palm trees that we're talking about. Tzini Harbarzel. Those are the types of leaves, right? The Zeu He Pischa Shel Gehenna. Also, they say that this is one of the entrances to Gehenna, right? I think some locate this as the valley. What's it called? Sultan Valley, right down there, just outside of the old city, right? Sultan Valley, they have a little valley. Yeah, so it's right outside. It's like an area.
That's not Sharia.
Yeah, that's right. Right. When you take the when you go by Shar Ashpot, when you go the other way around the long road, there's like a valley at the left over there. So the valley, yeah. So the valley down there, right? That's this further. Also, a nice little cineplex over there on top. Fine. 2 dots. Yeah. Between the palm trees and behind the cineplex, right? Fine. Lulav sheyesh ba shleisha tefachim. And so a lulav has to have 3 tefachim. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel shir hadas ve'arava shlosha. The measurement for the hadas, we haven't discussed it much yet. The hadasim and the aravos are 3 tefachim. The lulav arba, and the lulav is 4 tefachim. Kedei she lulav yaitze min hadas tefach. In order that the lulav should come from the hadas and the aravos, right? A tefach. So the hadas and aravos are referred as supposed to be 3 tefachim long, and the lulav is supposed to be 4 tefachim.
The purpose is that it will be able to open. What is the purpose of it? It has to be higher than hadas.
So let's see.
Okay.
In the Gemara says, the Rebbe Parnach Omar Rabbi Yechnan Shijo Shalulav Tzrich Sheyetz Min Hadas Tefach. The spine of the lulav has to come beyond the hadas tefach. And now it's not just the leaves, but even the spine has to be above. Let's see. So now the Mishnah says. So tonight we're going to miss a lulav sheyesh bo gimel tefachim. A lulav that has 3 tefachim kedei la neabo, in order they should be able to go ahead and shake it, right? Kedei la neabo. Kosher, right? So we see over here.
We're talking about non-splitting. That's the best way of it.
So
Non-splitting.
just three to be able to shake. It's good. So ema ukidei lenanebo kasher. In other words, it has to be 3 plus a tefach to shake it.
Right.
So you see the shaking it is the reason for the extra one. You're supposed to shake it. The extra part is supposed to be shook. That which grows beyond or that which is longer.
Has to be 3.
Right.
It's the spine to the bottom.
Well,
and then the shaker.
It could be that depends, but the extra has to be depending on each one, right? And kashers, market east bay. One who holds it just has to be a total of 4 will hold, right? That one who holds it there 4 is that it just has to be 3 plus, right? 1 tefach to shake, and the other one holds that no, it has to be 3 plus the spine plus a little more to go ahead and shake. Fine. Tashma, come and listen. So shir hadas the arava shloisha the lulav arba. So the measurement of the hadas and arava is 3 tvachim, and the lulav is 4. So my la b'hadi alit, right? Is it not saying so that it's only referring to the leaves? So no, it means the spine has to be longer. Like the second, in other words, that would be like this. We're trying to ask on Rabbi Parnacham, Rabbi Yochanan says no, not a kasha in Rabbi Yochanan, because we'll say that which it says that one above is not just the leaves, but even the spine, and then also the leaves are whatever the leaves are on top of the spine, which is already more than tefach, at least at 4. Gufa shir hadas rava shleisha. So the measurement for the hadas and rava is 3 tefachim. The lulav arba, and the lulav is 4 tefachim. Rabbi Tarfon Aimer bi'ama bas chamisha tefachim. We're talking about when an amma, right, is 5 tefachim. So we'll soon explain what that means. So first of all, amma rava. So Charle Mar the Rabbi Tarfon Hasht Avos Shlosha Lo Mishach Bas Chamisha. I understand. Right. First, they have this understanding that which he says, "Amma bas chamisha tvachim," they're thinking that it has to be itself an amma of 5 tvachim. In other words, they're thinking that the requirement is 5 tvachim. So he said, "I understand. We can't find we can't find the proper meaning, right? The hadassim of 3 tvachim, and you want us to find hadassim of 5 tvachim? What's going on here, right?" So no, he says no. So Kiyoser Avdimi Amar, this is what he said. No, Amma bas shisha tvachim. Go ahead and take an Amma, which is the standard Amma, which is 6 tvachim. So how long is an Amma? So based upon the tvachim. So we say 6 tvachim. That's an Amma, and also oisa bas chamisha. Divide that into 5. Okay, so each Amma there is really, or each tefach there is really 1 1/5, right? Take 1 into 6, divide it. Now it's each one's 1/5. Semian shloisha lahadas, and therefore take 3 of those for hadas. Bashar lulav, and the rest of it in the other part for a lulav, right? And the other part has to be a lulav. So kami havilu, how much is that? Tlas of a tlas chumsha. It has to be, therefore the hadasim has to be 3 3/5, right? Because each new tefach, according to this, because take a 6.
Equal to 6.
Right. So now let's take it 1 of 6 tefachim, divide it to 5, and now the requirement is more, right? The requirement is 3 3/5 to be the hadas. So that's what he held. It says kasha the Shmuel. It's a kasha in Shmuel. Why? Hacham Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Here is quote the name of Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Shir hadas v'rava shlosha. The hadasim have to be 3 tefachim. The hasam over there, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel halachar tarfon. Over there he says halach is like a tarfon. And who just said it has to be 3 3/5? So which one is it? 3 3/5 or 3? It's a kasha and Shmuel. It's a contradiction. So the Gemara answers lo dak. So it says, okay, it's not exact. The Gemara says, whoa, slow your roll. If you say lo dak, sometimes you can say, okay, this is the halacha, right? Only when we say lechumra, but lekula me'amrina. We don't say lekula. He's not going to say halacha, right, where it has to be 3 3/5, and he says just make it 3. He doesn't do that. It's the opposite way. He'll say, okay, make it 4. If it has to be 3 3/5.
We don't round down.
Right, we don't round down. Lekula me'amrina, lo dak. Says no. Kiyasir Ravin Amar says no. Opposite. Amma bas chamisha tefachim asos shisha. Go ahead and take an amma of 5 tefachim, right? And then make it into 6 parts. Semi and shaloisha, then take 3 of those parts. The hadas for the das. Vashalulav, and the 4 of those parts for lulav. So the kami havilu, how much is that? Trey upalga. That's 2.5, right? So really, according to Rabbi Tarfon, it's only the hadas only has to be 2.5 tefachim, right? Sof kasha shmuel. Okay, it's kasha shmuel. One case is I look like Tarfon, it's 2.5. The other time he says it's 3. So on that he says loidak. And now he says, okay, it's not exact. Fine, l'chumra loidak, and that's the l'chumra. Dem Rav Huna Mar Shmuel halachar tarfon. That's what he said. Halachar tarfon. He says it has to be right. Normally he says right because halacha is it only has to be 2.5. So he says how long does that have to be? It has to be 3. So if people make sure they have 3, obviously they'll fulfill the obligation according to Rabbi Tarfon, which according to Shmuel, the halacha is like that it only has to be 2.5 tefachim. Fine. Now Mishnah. Right, David, we'll just do a Mishnah maybe a little further, but we'll finish 5 or 6 minutes before. Hadas, Hagazel, Hayavesh. Now, so we discussed lulav. Now we go to the next, the hadas.
How much is lulav? How many tefachim?
Lulav is 4,
Okay.
and hadas is 3. So hadas, Hagazel, one is stolen, Hayavesh, or if it's dried out, puzzle. Shalashera, Shalayadachas.
It's basically the same.
Very simple, right? We'll still see where it gets unique.
I thought we just said that the lulav was fine.
No, that was the Havamina was 5, and then we said no, it's either 3 or 2. That was the whole discussion over there. But the end, Shmuel holds it was 3.
Okay.
So Hadas Hagazel by Yavesh Pasal, Shalasheva Shalayadachas Pasal. Those are Pasal because they say there's no shear because since they have to be destroyed, it's like their measurement is 0. Nektem Rosho Nivato Love if the top was cut off or it was removed. Oshayu Anava Merubos Me'alav. Or here comes a halacha unique to the hadas, which has berries grow on it. If the berries are more than the leaves, puzzle. V'miyata. And if you pull them off, it's kosher. However, but you can't pull them off on yantav. Right? One's not to do it on yantav. So Taner Rabbanan, it says anaf eitz avos. Right. So the pasuk is referring to the hadasim. It calls it a branch. Right. Anaf eitz avos. Right. From a plaited tree, like a braided type of tree. Shanaf of chayfim is eitzo, right? Whose growths, or whose leaves, right? They cover its branches. Vezahi. What is that? Haviyomi is hadas. That is referring to the hadas. Vema zesa. Well, that's referring to an olive tree. Sabinan avos veleka. Now over there, it has to be right, avos. It has to be like braided, right? It has to be braided around the way it looks, and that you don't have by the olive branches. Ve'ema dulva. Well, let's say from a chestnut tree. Sabinan enough of chayfin as eitzabaleka. Over there, you need the branches basically to cover, or the shoots that grow off it to cover the branches. And you don't have that. Ve'ema hirduf. Let's say the hirduf tree. So which is I guess it's the shoots do go around the branches, and we say that it is considered to be like a braided. Right over there, because it has some sort of thorns and it hurts to hold. Therefore, the Torah does not require that to be. Rather, it would be the hadasim. And Rav Amarhacha ha'emes v'ashalom avu. Right, it's the truth and peace are loved. In other words, therefore loved. Right, and therefore, in that case, we use something which is pleasant to do, like the hadas, and not the hirduf. All right, we'll stop here at the Tanur Rabbanan for tomorrow.
Is the whole thing a lulav or is the whole thing something else?
But is it called a lulav?
Yeah.
And we saw earlier that the whole thing was called Hoshanas.
You say
called it
other
earlier.
lulav. You don't
Right.
say lulav and das.